Chapter 1. Discovery. Alex was in his room, bored on a rainy Saturday afternoon. He decided to explore the attic, something he hadn't done in years. As he climbed the ladder, he felt a sense of adventure. The attic was full of old boxes and dusty furniture. He opened one box and found an ancient-looking book with a leather cover. The title was in a language he didn't recognize. Curiously, he opened it and started reading aloud from it. Suddenly, the room filled with a bright light, and he felt a strange energy flowing through him. He looked down and saw that his hands were glowing. "What's happening?" he thought, both scared and excited. Just then, there was a knock on his window. He turned and saw a woman floating outside on a broomstick. She had long silver hair and was wearing a purple robe. "Alex," she said, "I'm Professor Luna from Enchanted Studies. I've come to tell you about your magical abilities and invite you to our school." Alex was shocked. "Me? Magical powers? That can't be true," he said. Professor Luna smiled. "Oh, but it is true. You have just performed a spell from that book, haven't you? That book is a grimoire, a book of magic. It's been in your family for generations, waiting for the right time to be discovered by someone with magical talent." Alex's mind was racing. "But I'm just a normal kid. I don't know anything about magic." Professor Luna landed her broomstick and stepped into the room. "You are not just any kid, Alex. You have a gift, and it's time for you to learn how to use it properly. Our school, Enchanted Studies, is the best place for that. You'll meet other students like you and learn from experienced wizards and witches." Alex was still trying to process this information when he heard his mother calling him from downstairs. "Alex, who are you talking to up there?" Professor Luna looked at Alex. "I think it's time to introduce myself to your parents." Alex nodded and led her downstairs. His parents were in the living room watching TV. When they saw Professor Luna, they were surprised. "Who are you?" asked his mother. "And how did you get in?" Professor Luna introduced herself and explained about Alex's magical abilities and the invitation to the school. His parents were skeptical at first. "Magic? That's not real," said his father. But then Alex showed them his glowing hands. "Look, Mom, Dad, I can do this now." His mother gasped. "How is that possible?" Professor Luna explained that magic is real, and some people are born with the ability to use it. She assured them that Alex would be safe at the school and that he would receive the best education. After some discussion, his parents agreed to let him go to Enchanted Studies. Alex was excited and nervous at the same time. He had so many questions. "When do I start?" he asked. "Next week," said Professor Luna. "I'll come back to pick you up." With that, she left on her broomstick. Alex spent the next few days packing and saying goodbye to his friends. He couldn't wait to start his new adventure. Chapter 2. Arrival at Enchanted Studies. The day finally arrived for Alex to go to Enchanted Studies. Professor Luna came to pick him up in a flying carriage pulled by two winged horses. Alex's parents hugged him goodbye, and he climbed into the carriage. As they flew over the city, Alex looked down at the tiny houses and cars below. It was an amazing sight. After a while, they reached a large forest. The carriage descended and landed in a clearing. Professor Luna led Alex through a path in the forest until they came to a massive castle. It had tall towers and bright windows. "Welcome to Enchanted Studies," said Professor Luna. Alex was awestruck. He saw students flying on broomsticks and practicing spells in the courtyard. Inside, The castle was even more impressive. There were suits of armor, portraits of famous wizards, and magical artifacts everywhere. Professor Luna took Alex to the headmaster's office. The headmaster, Professor Merlin, was a tall man with a long white beard and twinkling eyes. "Welcome, Alex," he said. "We're glad to have you here." He gave Alex a brief tour of the school, showing him the classrooms, the library, the potions lab, and the flying field. Then, Professor Luna took him to his dormitory. He would be sharing a room with two other students, Mia and Jake. Mia was a bubbly girl with curly red hair, and Jake was a quiet boy with glasses. They welcomed Alex and showed him around their room. That evening, there was a welcome feast in the Great Hall. All the students and teachers gathered, and Professor Merlin made a speech. After the feast, Alex was exhausted but happy. He fell asleep quickly, dreaming of all the magical things he would learn. Chapter 3. The Crystal of Eternity. The next day, Alex started his classes. First, he had History of Magic with Professor Gandalf. Professor Gandalf was telling the class about the school's most precious artifact, the Crystal of Eternity. Legend has it that the crystal was created by the first wizards to ever walk the earth, he said. It has the power to grant immortality to whoever possesses it. But it's also said that if it falls into the wrong hands, it could bring about great disaster. Alex was fascinated. He raised his hand. "Is the crystal still here at the school?" Professor Gandalf nodded. "Yes, it's kept in a secure vault deep beneath the castle. Only the headmaster and a few trusted professors know its exact location." Just then, there was a commotion outside the classroom. A student burst in, looking frightened. "Professor, there's been an attack. Some dark creatures are trying to break into the school." Professor Gandalf sprang into action. "Students, stay here. I'll handle this." He rushed out of the classroom, followed by some other teachers. Alex and his classmates were worried. They heard shouts and spells being cast outside. After a few minutes, Professor Gandalf returned, looking shaken. "The attack has been repelled," he said, "but it seems that someone is trying to get to the crystal. We need to be on high alert." That night, Alex, Mia, and Jake talked about the incident. "I wonder who's behind this," said Mia. "Probably some dark wizard," said Jake. Alex thought about it. "Maybe it's that Zarok guy I've heard about in class. He's supposed to be a powerful dark wizard who was defeated years ago, but might be back." Mia nodded. "Yeah, that sounds possible." They decided to do some research on Zarok and the crystal to see if there was any connection. Chapter 4. Researching the Crystal. The next day, Alex, Mia, and Jake went to the library to find out more about the Crystal of Eternity and Zarok. They spent hours poring over old books and scrolls. Finally, they found a mention of Zarok in a history book. Zarok the Cruel was a powerful dark wizard who sought to conquer the world using dark magic, read Mia. He was defeated by a group of brave wizards and witches, and his fate is unknown. Some say he was imprisoned, while others believe he was killed. Jake found another book that mentioned the crystal. The Crystal of Eternity is said to be the key to unlocking unlimited power, he read. It's rumored that Zarok was after it before his defeat. Alex looked thoughtful. So if Zarok is back, he might be trying to get the crystal again. They needed to find out more about the crystal's powers and how to protect it. They discovered that the crystal can only be activated by a specific spell, and that spell is only known to a few people. They also found that the crystal is protected by powerful wards and enchantments. But if Zarok is as powerful as they say, he might find a way to break through those protections. They decided to talk to Professor Gandalf about their findings. Professor Gandalf listened to them and thanked them for their concern. "I'm aware of the situation," he said. "We're taking extra precautions to ensure the crystal's safety, but it's good that you're interested in helping. Maybe you can assist in keeping an eye out for any suspicious activity around the school." Alex, Mia, and Jake agreed to help in any way they could. Chapter 5. Challenges and Obstacles. A few days later, strange things started happening around the school. First, some potions in the potions lab were found to be tampered with, causing them to explode. Then, several broomsticks were found with broken wings, making them unusable. Students reported seeing shadows moving in the corridors at night. Alex, Mia, and Jake suspected that these were the work of Zarok or his minions. They decided to patrol the school at night to see if they could catch anyone suspicious. One night, while walking through the halls, they heard footsteps coming from the library. They hid behind some bookshelves and saw a figure in a dark cloak entering the restricted section. Alex recognized the figure as Professor Draco, one of the teachers, but Professor Draco was known to be a bit eccentric. Maybe he was just working late. Wait, but why would he be in the restricted section? They decided to follow him. Professor Draco was looking through some ancient texts, mumbling to himself. Suddenly, he pulled out a scroll and started reading from it. A bright light flashed, and a portal opened in front of him. Out of the portal stepped a tall figure with piercing red eyes and a cruel smile. "Zarok!" gasped Alex. Professor Draco knelt before him. "Master, I have prepared everything as you commanded." Zarok nodded. "Good. Now, let's proceed to get the crystal." Alex, Mia, and Jake were horrified. Professor Draco was working for Zarok. They needed to warn Professor Gandalf immediately. But before they could move, Zarok turned towards them. "I sense intruders," he said. Professor Draco looked around and spotted them hiding. "Get them!" he shouted. Zarok cast a spell, and a blast of dark energy headed towards them. They dodged and ran out of the library. As they ran, they heard Zarok and Professor Draco chasing them. They needed to find help quickly. They burst into Professor Gandalf's office. Professor!" shouted Alex. "Zarok is here, and Professor Draco is helping him." Professor Gandalf was already on his feet, wand in hand. "Where are they?" he asked. "Come in this way," said Mia. Just then, Zarok and Professor Draco entered the office. "Gandalf," said Zarok, "it's been a long time." Professor Gandalf narrowed his eyes. "Zarok, I thought you were defeated years ago." Zarok laughed. "You can't defeat me that easily. I've come back to claim what's mine, the Crystal of Eternity." Professor Gandalf stood firm. "You'll have to go through me first." A fierce duel began between Professor Gandalf and Zarok. Spells flew back and forth, shaking the room. Alex, Mia, and Jake tried to help by casting their own spells at Professor Draco. But Professor Draco was a skilled wizard and deflected their spells easily. Finally, Professor Gandalf managed to disarm Zarok with a powerful spell. Zarok fell to the ground, defeated. Professor Draco tried to flee, but Mia tripped him with a spell, and he was captured. Professor Gandalf breathed a sigh of relief. "Well done, students. You've helped save the school." But their celebration was short-lived. Zarok suddenly vanished in a puff of smoke. "Where did he go?" asked Alex. Professor Gandalf looked grave. "He must have teleported away. We need to find him before he tries to get the crystal again." Chapter 6. Confronting Zarok. The next day, the school was on high alert. Professor Gandalf organized a search party to find Zarok. Alex, Mia, and Jake were allowed to join, as they had proven their bravery. They searched the entire school, but there was no sign of Zarok. Then, they heard a loud explosion from the direction of the vault where the crystal was kept. They rushed there and found that the door to the vault was blasted open. Zarok was inside, holding the crystal of eternity. "No!" shouted Professor Gandalf. "Stop him!" Zarok laughed. "Too late, Gandalf. The crystal is mine now." He began to chant a spell to activate the crystal. Professor Gandalf and the other teachers tried to stop him, but his dark magic was too strong. Alex, Mia, and Jake looked at each other. They needed to do something. Alex remembered that the crystal could only be activated by a specific spell, and maybe they could disrupt it. He shouted to his friends, "Let's try to distract him." They started casting spells at Zarok, trying to break his concentration. Zarok was momentarily distracted, and his chant faltered. Professor Gandalf seized the opportunity and cast a powerful spell that knocked the crystal out of Zarok's hands. The crystal fell to the ground, and Alex quickly picked it up. Zarok roared in anger and lunged at Alex. But Mia and Jake stepped in front of him, casting protective spells. There was an intense battle between Zarok and the group. Finally, with a combined effort, they managed to trap Zarok in a magical cage. Professor Gandalf sealed the cage with a powerful ward. "Zarok, you are defeated again," he said. "This time you'll be imprisoned where you can't escape." Zarok snarled, but was powerless to do anything. The students cheered as the danger was over. Chapter 7. Celebration. The school held a grand celebration to honor Alex, Mia, Jake, and all those who helped defeat Zarok. There was a feast in the great hall, with music and dancing. Professor Merlin gave a speech, thanking everyone for their bravery and loyalty. Alex was awarded the Medal of Courage for his role in saving the crystal. As he looked around at his friends and teachers, Alex felt a sense of belonging and pride. He knew that his life had changed forever, and he was excited to continue learning and growing at Enchanted Studies. The end.